and welcome to my channel. Let's see what's going on with you guys currently. Let's do a collective. Oh, that came out. Reverse. Originality, problems with authority, rebellion, subversiveness. Subversiveness. You know what that means. It's the Hierophant in reverse. Yeah, okay, so on the bottom is justice, cause and effect, win-win solutions, truth and clarity. Haha, okay, so you're doing something, you're putting your own spin on something. Tell me more about this. Tell me more about you. Trickery. Bittersweet. Okay, you've been dealing with a lot of these people, and it's like you're offering so much to them. They already have more than enough, but you're still feeling the need to like over giving to the wrong people, and then you're wondering why they're like, I'm not interested. And it's like these people you're offering your cake to, they don't make their own food. They've never thought about it. They're so used to everyone else making things for them that they don't think much of it. They don't know what goes into making a cake. They don't know what goes into planning a menu, planning a recipe, going out and shopping and getting those ingredients, making sure you got the best ingredients. Like, they don't put time and attention into anything. They don't put any care into themselves. And so when you do this for them, they don't see the value in it. You have different values. This is like people who value, it's not like I would like a larger house, but when I look at some of these larger houses, like a larger house for me would have to be because I get a better view of nature, because I have open windows that brings the nature into my home. Well, their idea of a bigger house says this is going to make me more important. Do you see the difference? Like, you could both value a larger space, but it's for different reasons. They put value in the house and saying that, like, they think that more people are going to look up to them and it's going to make them seem important. And you're doing it because, well, I like the idea of like feeling like the outdoors is inside my house, you know? This is like you're offering a cake that you made from scratch, and they're buying you something from the grocery store that's been sitting there and it was probably on reduced, and it tastes like garbage because it's over sugared. It's different when you make something from your own hands and you put effort in. You're also the idea of like, you know, if I can make a cake that is somewhat healthy too, I might try that. You know, if I can, I don't know. It's just the effort. There's like a lack of effort from these individuals, and I don't know if you're in this or you're needing to get out of this. The sooner you can recognize when you give yourself into that situation. So I know that I'm going towards a person. I know I'm recognizing now, because it feels like a magnetic pull that you're not aware of. And the sooner you can slow this down, the better. So when I recognize, like, I look at someone and I can start to see their wounds, I no longer need to go towards that person to find anymore. I just had a situation happen with a neighbor like this, where our first interaction I felt like, I brought this up in a previous video, but it's an example. It's like when, I'll use a different example. I want to use a different example. Okay, so I had a coworker, and she seemed really helpful, but then I noticed there's a day where she was reprimanding all of us for no reason. It was about something that didn't have anything to do with her area of work. She just took it upon herself to be the boss, and so then she took it upon herself to, because she was older, maybe she had more years in at the company, that she could then, you know, unload her emotional baggage onto the rest of us because she was frustrated with whatever the situation was. It wasn't actually what was happening, what she was talking about. She just found an opportunity to unleash and unburden her emotions onto us. And so I noticed that and then she did it again. She did it on me, where she's trying to humiliate me on the job to make me seem like I didn't know what I was doing, and that she was, you know, in charge, and that how dare you start a task without checking in with me? How dare you be so confident in yourself, and that you can just move on without checking in with me even more, you know? And so when I talked to her about this, because after she did this huge display in front of everybody and humiliated me, the next, it was a Monday I came in, and she tried to act like nothing had happened. And I said, no, you don't treat me like that. You humiliated me on Thursday, and you don't just do that. And then she actually did try to come over and apologize, but she also tried to make excuses for her behavior. And then she also tried to act like she was aware that, you know what, no, I know I do that. But then she didn't do anything different. She acknowledged to me, but then she still wanted us to be friends, and she still was treating other people that would, she just picked a different target. She didn't change her behavior. She chose a different target. So she's still the same. So while we may not seem like we have problems anymore in the work floor because she's not treating me like that, she's doing it with other people. So someone else may be like, oh, look, they're getting along now. Isn't that great? But no, that's not great. She's just chosen somebody else. And that's a problem with the people in that environment. They're not recognizing her for her bad behavior, right? And they're just writing it off as like, that's Sharon, that's who she is, or she's older, so let's give her some grace. Well, if you're older, you should have more experience and more wisdom. And you should not be unleashing your emotions on people. You've had time. You've had the time to figure that shit out. You've had more than enough time, right? And so I recently had a situation that is connected where the neighbor did this the first time I met her, and I was like, you know what, she said she was stressed out at work, and so like she, you know what, it made me think like maybe because I was addressing something about their dog barking all the time, and I'm like, maybe was I in the wrong? And I wasn't in the wrong. Could I use better language? I could have, but that's still like, when I look at all the things that I did wrong, it still doesn't outweigh how she responded, because I've had a number of people treat me horribly, cruelly, and wrongly. And just because I'm learning my how to speak up for myself, I don't find it insulting, but I'm sure she found it rude. But like, what I realized, it didn't matter how I would have said it. It's the fact that I brought up a boundary with somebody and I was holding them accountable. Because I had a second situation when they didn't cut their lawn and all the clippings were on my driveway. And like when I asked them, I try to hold them accountable for cleaning that up, and they just went into a whole thing. And what it ended up, the conversation was so far gone from what we started with, and that's what they did. They created like this chaos. And then she got in the end to call me a bitch a number of times, and she got to take out her frustration how everyone thinks you're a bitch, which I think she's projecting. And I think she's actually, while I choose to be a hermit, I don't think she has a choice in the matter, because based on her behavior, she can't handle the daily, like just basic things in life where she gets unhinged quite easily with basic constructive criticism and just feedback and just like, hey, you're an adult, you got to clean up your mess, you got to clean up after yourself. She did not like that. And so, and he didn't either. And the thing is, like, they pick a partner, they have each other, and they're the same. And so they're each other's yes men. So they're always going to blame it on somebody else, right? And so I'm like, oh, how did I get here? How did I get here again? And why me? Why are they right beside me? But it's like, it's helping me realize, like, I should have, and I talked to my daughter about this, and she's better in these areas where she's like, and I was talking it out with her, I'm like, I should have just shut the door in her face when she started. I should have went in. I shouldn't even, when she came over hot and bothered like that, it's interesting because this makes me laugh now. I watched a YouTube video where they're talking about how to help toddlers regulate themselves. And so like when they're holding a temper tantrum, the idea is to say like, as long as you're screaming and crying like that, I don't know what you're saying. And so I can't understand what you're saying. And so like, that's what you're supposed to do to the toddler. And I should have just did that to her. Like, I'm not talking to you when you're talking to me like this. And I should have just left. And honestly, I don't know that I actually would even want a second conversation, because the fact that she's so comfortable unleashing her emotions on people she doesn't even know, and she hasn't even had I had the conversation with her husband. So telephone tag is like, you don't even know, like you're based off his perspective of a conversation. She came over hot on me, and she doesn't even know, like she in reality, so she didn't check in. She just blindly trusted his perspective and opinion on something without asking questions of me, without even knowing me, and just thought, hey, I'm just gonna, like, you don't know me. You know what, I don't punch people unless it comes down to it. I do know Taibo, and I do lift boulders for a living because I can't help but add more landscape to my background. So I personally wouldn't want to take a chance, but some people don't think that way. And like, you know what, like push comes to shove is when I would get physical. I don't resort to, I don't find that like it's just, I don't know. It's embarrassing. I would think it would embarrass. I got in a fight when I was in high school. It was embarrassing. but there are people out there where she is going to come against, and it's going to be the wrong one. Like in the way that like somebody is going to give her that punch, or someone is going to set her in a place. I just got other shit to do where it's not my job. It's not my job. Like, you want to run your life like that? That can't be wonderful. But it feels like you've been put in a position here where you're just like, oh, I need water. It's like you're constantly coming up against these individuals, and it feels like when you experience these people, it's really challenging because you experience so many of them before you can figure it out, like what the heck is going on, that it starts to feel hopeless. And like everybody is like this. And I think for me, it's like learning, recognizing when I'm coming across as prey versus empowered to a predator. And so I'm learning how to do that better. And it's, for me, it's removing the emotions from it and getting more logical and just saying like, okay, I don't care what kind of wounding you have, you still don't need to talk to me like that. You know, and I know I used to get really upset at telemarketers, and it wasn't the telemarketer that was the issue. Well, I mean, some of them just, it felt like they weren't doing their job. That's real. No, it felt like they weren't doing their job. No, that's true. And while I didn't have to get the heightened, I felt like they were trying to take my money. But in reality, it's the company that has hired these people, and they're watching them, and they know they're running. You know, they're. I had to recognize where I was unleashing my emotions on the wrong person, and that is an energy source. So like whenever you're unleashing your unburdening your emotions in that way, it's, you're gonna have to regather, you know, and neutralize and rebalance yourself out. So what's happening here is you have learned, I think you've learned how to stay calm, but you're still entertaining these freaking hurricanes, these emotional hurricane people. And it's just learning to do it sooner and better. And that's all I'm learning. I'm like, okay, how could I have avoided this situation? Oh, I shouldn't even answer the door when she was that heightened state. I should have left, and I should have called the police. Honestly, because what I'm recognizing is, even at my heightened points, I never went like that to like I don't know, like I get, you know, I got frustrated for a reason, because someone's trying to steal my money, but I haven't even talked to this woman yet, and there's no details yet, and I don't know if that's the same as, like, I try to see if like this is a karma from something else that I've done. I often try to like check in with myself and self-reflect, like, am I doing this in some way? But this lady has no right to come into my property in that sort of energy, right? And so I'm learning where I used to think I could compromise with these people. It's not my job to deal with crazy. And so what I should have done in the first place is put my foot down, and I should have called the cops. I thought, and I've done this before when I was in an environment at Fruenberg Knock where I was dealing with sexual harassment from the afternoon senior engineer, Dave. And it was a number of times, like there was no lack of communication. I often told him how I didn't want him to be close to me. I kept telling him to back up. I told him to stop touching me. Like, there's no lack of communication. He just felt entitled to my body and my space. Married man, but felt entitled to my body and my space. It's really weird, right? And so like I stayed too long, like trying to talk it out to like see if they're, because you just think that because they're human, that if you just tell them what your side, if they could just understand your side, that they're gonna, but they don't. I don't even need to know why they don't understand where I'm coming from. It's not my job, you know? And so like, I think what I've learned from these situations is, yes, I got evidence, and get out of it. Like there's no sort of like, I like the idea of being able to talk things out, but you got to understand, only people with common sense and some sort of like calm and ability to like receive, if they can't receive your message, there's no point sending it, right? So you could send that message over and over and over. These individuals are closed off. When someone just comes storming at your door like that, and they're so ready to unburden, like you gotta, like that's not a normal reaction. Normal reaction is, I need to get some information. What's going on? Like, is that really how that conversation went? You know, like asking questions is normal. Accusations is not. So when I get that loud energy, instead of thinking that I can resolve this on my own, I no longer do that. It's the police. And the police I can't completely rely on either, but at the same time, it's not my job to put myself in front of that freaking crazy bitch. You know, it's just not your job. You got to stop taking on roles that you're not getting paid for. The police get paid to deal with that crazy. I don't. So I start like, and like I said, it's challenging because you don't always get like the good side of justice, but at the same time, you're not getting paid to deal with these people. And I think when they think that you're tolerating their abuse and you're like hanging in there to try to like find the middle ground, I think they take that as like this is an open door and I can treat this person like this. And so I've learned to really pull myself back, and I've had to do it a number of times to the point where I'm just like, when I see crazy showing up, I recognize it as crazy and I don't make excuses and I shut the door. You know, nobody needs to talk to me like that. Nobody needs to talk to you like that. Okay, so tell me the wounding behind this. What do you need to look at to help you move through this? Sexual arts. And then pride. Pride and ego. You know what? I did a pre-pull for this, and I had the cards here. True love, pride, self-centeredness, ego-driven. The toxic and self-destructive behaviors did come up. And third party. But there was another. No, there was. No, was that it? Anyways, I'm not going to pull those cards because they didn't. But it was the same sort of energy here. Or the idea of it. It's almost like that, like for one, you're so used to doing things on your own, right? I used to think I could just take care of this. I could just handle it. And I can't. You got to think, when someone is actually going out of their way, like the first case was crazy and the second case was worse. She's calling me a cunt, a bitch. Like that over cuttings of the lawn, like asking them to clean up their mess. And just this is just a conversation, you know, and trying to figure out who's going to cut what. And that's where it elevated to. That is not, that person is, you're not going to make way to them. There's no way you're going to get, this is where I had to tell myself, like, I can work with certain people. I can't fix that shit. That you need legal people involved, you know, like you got to recognize, I know you're used to dealing with things and you're used to being in control of the situation. Like you could be a single parent and you've had to, you know, you've been at the hands of emotional abuse from your family members. And so you've had to do everything for nothing. And you're always the one that has to fix shit. But this is no longer, this is not your job. You don't need to fix this shit. This is crazy. This is so above your pay grade. You don't need to deal with this. This is when you need to call in the authorities and get them involved. It's no longer your job. And I think that's part of balancing out. I had to learn on a number of occasions where I was being called in to damage people. And it's because I had worked on myself, and then I could start seeing the wounding in these people. And I was kind of proud. I was like, oh my God, like I can help you because I just dealt with that I just fixed that in myself. I just worked on that. You know, I know how to make myself more confident, so I can help you become more confident. I found my life purpose, so I can help you find yours. You know, or at least I can help point you in a good direction. I used to think that was like a reason to like get close to these people, not recognizing that these are predatory type of people. And what I mean by predatory is they're opportunistic, they're lazy as fuck, and they're entitled, and they're very immature. And if they wanted to, they would have. You know, it's like I get stuck in certain areas of life, like trying to make finances, but it's because I've been, you know, carrying everyone else's bullshit for the first majority of my life, right? The people that you're being drawn to, you're seeing the wounding in them, but you're not seeing like the entitlement, the immaturity, and the laziness. And that's what I had to start recognizing. If I could see my wounding, but I also had to make sure I saw like the effort that I was making in life, because even when I was down and out, I was still attending. I wasn't creating work for other people. It was all self internalized. And there's a difference. There's people who are wounded and they internalize it and they suffer in silence. And there's ones who externalize it and project it and they put it onto other people. And what that looks like is they don't do the work. They expect everybody to revolve around them. And then you're the one who's revolving around them. Right? So both wounded, but both different ideas of like what is required of them, where you're taking accountability for yourself and them now, and they have zero accountability. And so that's why if you keep going towards that and you don't learn how to pull yourself back, and I had to learn how to work through my emotions and recognize them. I also had to learn how to recognize people like that who were doing that. And I recognized a major factor was I was feeling bad for those people. I felt like maybe it's so odd. Like you, as a child, were made to feel guilty for asking and speaking up on your needs. So as an adult now, when you go to do that, you get kickback from these people because everyone else, there's a lot of people that are around them. These are like, I relate this to like a shark with a feeder fish. And they're narcissistic, but they have feeder fish and they're willing to play along because they're getting something from it. And what it means when you're in close proximity to the shark and you're a feeder fish, it means you're close to them, but you're not like the target. So like the shark is over here and you're the target, right? The feeder fish are hanging on. They kind of move with the shark, if that makes sense. So they never really become a target because they're backing the bully. Right? But what you don't understand is like, I mean, when you run out of targets, feed on fish, there is like a certain way, like that's not a life to live. I would not want to be a feeder fish. They think it's like a safety net to be in close proximity to the bully like that. But it's actually, what they don't realize is like they're slowly deteriorating of self. There's an element of control that is involved there. And it's not a happy lifestyle, because the thing is, like, the only reason why that feeder fish and shark dynamic works is because you're below the shark, and so they like to step on you to make themselves feel big. So that means you have to stay small. So the feeder fish are never going to elevate past the shark without becoming on its radar, because the thing is once you do, that shark senses that movement and now you're the target. And so a lot of people think, oh, I'm just going to back the bully. It seems pretty safe here. I'm a fence rider. I can see both scenarios, but I'm going to back the bully. It's a little bit safer than put my neck out there for that one person. Like 1 + 1 is still none compared to this big group over here, right? So they think it's safe over there. But eventually, if you ever want to elevate from a feeder fish to living on your own, you're going to have to follow that same path that the lone wolf took, whatever name you want to put it, the black sheep. Eventually you're going to have to hermit mode it and do it on your own, and you're going to have to come across a lot of, and that's the sad part to this situation, because if we all were to level up together and really turn on these people so that they could really see the reality of the situation, and I don't know if that means growth or not, I don't really care, but it's a matter of like making our community safer, because we're not tiptoeing around these sharks that really are quite insecure and entitled little children in adult bodies that really get everyone else to do the work for them. And so the pride says, because you were raised to push through abuse and tolerate it, the pride says, I can handle this. And you know what? I did this in a workplace, and I've done it before in another workplace, and now it's showing up like it's still there. So if I tolerate this, and then I try to smooth it over without any sort of an apology, like I'm still doing the same thing. I'm still tolerating abuse just in my neighborhood. It's different from a relationship, and then the workplace, and then now it's right next door. So like, I gotta stand up for myself. I have to get the police involved, and I have to protect myself. Okay, so family and tribe is on the bottom as well. Yeah, I definitely feel like I have not found my soul tribe. And I think that's a reason why I feel so targeted at times, because I feel like prey, because, herds have a number of people, and it's kind of like, like a beehive where the queen bee has all those workers, and they all work together though. They all work together, and yes, there is a queen bee, but I feel like they all work together and they all protect each other. It's not like they're just protecting the queen bee. They're working as a team. And I just have not experienced that yet. But this sexual arts card is making me think of like, because it's mirroring these insecure people where it's like, if I were to do the work and put myself out there, remove my pride and ego, then I could find my tribe. But I haven't. It's reminding me that I am by myself right now, but it's because I haven't put myself out there to find my tribe, right? So it's a reminder. It's almost like mirroring in a way, like the insecurities of the bullies versus the insecurities of I guess it's predator and prey, whatever. I don't know what term you want to use, but like yeah, do you see all this? These are all interesting. They're different power dynamics here, right? You don't see your worth. And so until you learn and recognize your worth, it's almost like you're just going to be at the hands of these people, because it's almost like they sense this on you. It's almost like, you know, when you talk about like when, like what do, oh, actually I don't want to go there. I'm just saying like what makes the target, you know, what makes prey prey, you know, they come across as defenseless. And in numbers, I think that's how they defend, I guess. I don't know. I'm just saying there's something here where as long as you remain, what the problem is these people are emotional, but so are you. Because like, I know when I experience this, I get into my emotions and I really start to doubt myself, right? Because like I said, I've experienced this so many times and I'm just like, okay, like I don't want to put myself out there, because I feel like anytime I put myself out there in the past, I get targeted. And it feels like shit, but it can put myself back into myself. But that's not the idea. The idea is to like recognize that these people are not your people. And so stop listening to them, because you're taking, like, while they're coming at you, like, it's like, would you take advice from these people? No. So like when they say stuff like this, why are you taking it to heart? I've learned to become less emotional, become more logic. I have to become more logic. They're saying things because it's like an underlying wound. Like, so people will, like when they say like, oh, everyone else thinks you're a bitch, that's why they don't like you. What I choose to spend time by myself because I'm working on my life. I haven't put myself out there yet, but to them, they see that like they're obviously observing like it's just me over here. I'm the one doing all the work, so I don't have people to help. I don't get people to help me. And so like I seem very solo. Right? So that gives them the opportunity, like we can pick on her because she doesn't have anyone to back her. Right? So I need to get to I need to get out of my comfort zone. I need to start putting myself out there. And in order to do that, it's hard though, because like depending on what you're watching. So if you watch certain things on YouTube, that can really program. And I have to be careful with that too, because like there's programming out there, and I have to recognize, is that extremist programming? Is that like the opposite side of the coin? Is that like, you know, if you want to, you can really convince yourself of anything. Let's be honest, with the help of the internet and algorithms and insecurities, like you can really convince yourself of anything if you want to. Because your body wants to keep you, like yourself wants to keep you comfortable and safe. But if we're going to stay comfortable and safe, that means we're not exercising. And exercising is good for you. And getting uncomfortable is actually good for you, because it creates growth. You know, it's like, what if a plant stayed in the seed? Then we never have a plant. And that means we never have strawberries. And that would really suck, right? So like plants get uncomfortable. We have to get uncomfortable to grow. We just do. Okay, so this pride and ego says, you know what? It's like pulling back the veil. What uncomfortable thing have you been avoiding? Let's see. Let's get a shadow aspect here. What have you been avoiding in your life? Here's the thing, when you have a fear of something, it's because you haven't got enough information on it, right? Or you're not listening to that. Optimism. staying positive and hopeful, stability, solid foundations. You don't feel like that's possible. I can understand why, because I don't feel like that's possible. I want to hope in it, but from what I've seen, anytime I put myself out there, I keep getting knocked down. Like it's happened from my family members, the closest people to me, and now just complete strangers. So it makes sense that my belief system tells me, you know, anytime I put myself out there, bad things happen. I get targeted. But that's not the truth. The truth is, I need to learn to recognize who my people are and who they aren't. And I've recently done that when I recognized my person, my people wouldn't talk to me like that. That is not my person. That is not my people. And I used to think, well, maybe that's just, they're like the unhealed version of me. And so I would give them compassion and grace. But that is not the unhealed version of me. I'm not seeing myself clearly. And let's just say parts of it was like me. You know, like maybe I'm not yelling at a neighbor, but maybe I'm getting upset with a telemarketer. I no longer do that. So let's just say that was the old version of me. I don't need to punish myself with the old version of me. You know, I've changed. I've done things different. And if I feel like I haven't done enough, then maybe that's something I still need to work on. But I'm very different from who I was a long time ago. And so some of these, I think it's helpful to recognize, like, I think we punish ourselves because we've been made to think that we're the problem. And so I think sometimes where we look at somebody, we say like, I feel bad for them because I used to be like that too, so I want to give them grace. But that's no longer you. You don't deserve that anymore. You dealt with that karma while you were there. You know, you don't have to keep dealing with karma like that. That's their karma. So you're creating more karma for yourself when you think that you have to tolerate behavior like that when you've learned how to behave better. When you behave better, you get better. So why are you putting up with these people of the past? Because you think you can't fix them. You know that you can't fix them, right? They don't want to learn by their example. They're closed off. Recognizing closed off people and people who don't want to change is a very important part for me, because effort is a huge deal. People who give effort is a huge, that's the thing where I'm like, okay, when I'm allowed to speak my truth, people listen, and then they make the effort to make changes, those are my people. When I tried to speak my truth here, there was no questions asked, so there was no understanding. There's no understanding. That's not my person. They're not even trying to understand. They're just looking for a reason to unload their burdens. That is not my job. So when you start to recognize that these are not your people, you've been in the wrong places. You've been giving yourself in the wrong, like, they don't need your attention. You need to bring your attention to elsewhere. And there are good people out there. So just keep putting yourself out there for the right people to find you. I mean, you're going to have some misses. That's just life. Like, even in the dating world, you can't expect to meet your guy or girl. Like, it's going to take time. But I think the reason why it takes time, oh, I'm burping, is like, it's not just for us to, it's for us to like, get good at recognizing who is for us and who is not. And it's not only that, like, I have to get good, but better with my boundaries, you know, learning to speak up on them. And like, I haven't even met somebody who can have a conversation yet about like when I have an issue. Like, I mean, me and my daughter, like, you know, we have our conversations, but it's still sort of very, you know, as she's her own person, I have to let her make her own mistakes. So even when I have conversations, like, there's not a lot of hard truths going on there. Like, there's some, but it's very like, permission. It's like permission to speak kind of stuff. There's no sort of, with my kids, it's like, they're not in my household anymore. So they're responsible for their own actions. So that's very passive. When I have a person who is actually going to be in my life in a way that it's going to affect me, like, that's why I tell the kids, like, if you get to make your choices, but I'm letting them know at this time I can't help a lot because I'm in my own bind, right? So like, I'm trying to figure out my shit and build my life, unfortunately. So like, I'm limited to my help so the decisions that they make, they're going to have to get themselves out of those binds, because there's either, like, I can give guidance and support. I don't have money right now. I don't have a network. I don't have anything outside of guidance and support. So that means if they fuck up their car, they're going to have to fix their car, which they do, you know? If they don't have a car, they're going to have to figure out how to get around without a car, which they do, you know? And so I do what I can as a parent, but sometimes, like, there are times where I'm like, I can't do that. That's it. Like, this is what I can and cannot do. And so the way somebody responds when you put a boundary down is very telling of what that relationship's going to be like. And I was, you know what, I know that I've been taking so much in the past that I just can't tolerate anymore. You're going to get to a point, like, if you're tolerating this bullshit, like, it's going to take a toll. You're going to get tired. Let me tell you. Okay, so, what do I want? What deck do I... Okay, let's find out. What do you need to let go of? Heartbreak. And competition. You know what's weird? When I looked at this heart, it looks like two people arguing at each other. Like this is the mouth here, and this is the mouth here. And this one looks like they have a beard. And it's kind of like that arguing over like, this competition. There's three people up this hill. And then we have independent, dependent. And then we have hatred. These people hate themselves and they're living out of fear. They're living out of fear. And there's I don't want to keep going down, but there's a death card. It's just like these, there's like an ending that needs to come here. And I think it's an ending with yourself. And I think sometimes we think we've done something different and we're still doing it, but we're just not doing it as much. And so we need to recognize okay, I'm still doing that. I'm still doing that behavior. I'm still expecting something from someone who is incapable of it. Like I said, it's like when you recognize someone who is balanced, someone who is responsible and accountable, you're going to recognize that because those are the traits that you've grown within yourself and you've developed, right? So when you don't see that in somebody, stop making excuses for connecting with that person just because you're lonely. I know I do that. I'm like, you know what? I've been alone for so long. And you got to think, if this is what you do with just coworkers and neighbors and things like that, where you're like willing to look past their trauma, then there's no point in dating right now because you're just going to keep doing that. So it's almost like a number of like tests to show you like, okay, look, you're still ignoring this. You're still ignoring this. So like you could be asking for a partner, but you're not ready for a partner because you can't even handle like just keeping your mouth shut around people who like are just not ready to hear it. You're still drawn to the trauma. That's what it is. It doesn't sound good when you say it like that, does it? I don't like the sounds of that, but the truth of is, because you know what, you feel like you've done so much work and you have, but we're just refining this, right? Because you asked for something and you want something and you're not going to settle. Let's be honest. You know when you're settling. Okay, so we got to keep going and recognize we're still falling for the same trap. Okay, so when are you lonely? What's making you lonely? You know what I realized when I was lonely and I wanted like friends and I wanted a partner, and I'm like, what I didn't realize was I had 2 kids in my life that I wasn't giving my best to, and I had 2 pets that were untrained, 2 dogs that are untrained, and I thought I was lonely. Am I lonely or am I bored? You know, like I have a lot of love in my life and I was still looking for it outside, and like I wasn't working out, I wasn't eating right. So it's like, are you lonely or are you bored? And are you comfortable? Because like there's things that you can do with your time that don't involve other people. And the idea of it is uncomfortable. I mean, there's some things like I just don't want to go do by myself. I'd rather stay at home and do them. Like I don't need to go to a movie theater and watch a movie by myself. I'd rather watch where I can pause it and go to the bathroom and get snacks when I want. So that's something I wouldn't do. But like going on a walk by myself, not a big deal. I don't mind that. You know, and so it's getting, I think what you need to get more comfortable with is being by yourself, because as long as you're still thinking about a potential partner out there, or even the soul tribe, like even for friendships and stuff, if you're still, I think it's important part of the path. I think you have to like have these run-ins with these people, because it shows you, okay, like where does the work need to be done. I don't think it's a bad thing, but recognize where like some work needs to be done still. What is that work? What do I need to recognize within myself? Where am I still falling into these traps with these individuals, right? It makes sense. You've been raised to ignore your intuition. You've been raised to forgive no matter what. You've been raised to accept the worst behavior, let's be honest. Because like your parents, your family, the society has put you in a position where you're expected to receive nothing and give everything. So that's not just going to happen overnight. So I want you to give yourself some grace here and understand that, like, yes, you've done a lot of work and there's a little bit more. And if you want to grieve that, kind of definitely get upset about that. That would be like a frustration cry, because you're impatient with the situation. You want what you want when you want it, right? But at the same time, there's still, if you were to get what you want right now, I don't know that it would work, because I don't know that you're able to recognize what you want right now. Like this is a reading for myself where I think I've done enough work, but I obviously have not, you know, nothing wrong with that. It's a check-in point. It's not, it doesn't mean you have to go back and hermit. It doesn't mean you have to go and hide. It just means like there was a misstep. There was like, you know what, I still need to do more work. I need to get better at that. And that's fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. The fact that you're trying is important, right? You're here, you're looking for answers. You're trying to find out what the fuck is going on. I think that's huge. Where a lot of people are just in denial and they're saying, no, not me. I'm not doing that. It's not me. I'm not the problem. Yeah. I mean, here's the thing, like you're going after a goal. These people are not. That's the difference. Like, and you need to recognize, like, you're looking to grow and these people are not bonding. Look at this. That's what you're doing. That's what you're moving towards. Recovering from heartbreak and moving towards this. That looks like a good hug. And it looks like they have a beautiful garden. Just saying, you may be a garden girl. Let me see. If we can get, I got coping skills trauma deck. Let's see if we got anything from there. Asking for help. When people have experienced trauma, it is not unusual for them to have difficulty asking for and accepting help. However, asking for help and receiving it can be, oh, this is hard for me to say. This is going to be emotional. Someone's going to get emotional. This is hard for me to say. However, asking for help and receiving it can be an act of self-compassion. Who can you ask for help? Who is trustworthy? And who might be helpful? Try asking for help and challenging yourself to accept it. That was hard for me to read. So I don't know if it was hard for you to hear. Because I know for me, in this card, it's the trustworthy part. Because I think I give what I want to receive, you know? I try to give understanding to people, where I try to be like, you know what, I understand you're struggling, so I understand that. But what I'm not going to tolerate is you treating me badly, right? So I think there's, we need to watch where, I learned to recognize like myself and other people, and those would be the people. So like, I look for hardworking people who put in effort. And I recognize that the people, I think I had to really revise my idea of like what friendship was and what connections look like, to be honest, because what I grew up with, it was very codependent. It was very like, my father was very unhinged emotionally and verbally, and my mother was very quiet but unavailable, right? Like she shut down because he amped it up. That made him large and her small. And so growing up with that sort of like example has really affected me, because I've had to not only learn how to come out of that, that has taken a lot of my life. Not only like building those unhealthy patterns, but unbricking them and relearning new ways. And so I think sometimes it can get really challenging, because through that whole process, you really find out who is for you and who is not. But it's a tough solo path to walk. And the people that were meant to be there for, oh, this is going to be, the people that were meant to be there for you were never there for you. And they were part of the people that were bullying you. You know, that's a hard, so you don't have family. Like, I mean, I have my kids, but I don't want to ask my kids for help. You know, well, my daughter and I will talk about stuff and discuss things, because I also want to see what her awareness is at times. But I also find it helpful because she has some elevated ways of thinking in some ways, and she still has growing to do in other ones. But she does give some good answers. And to be honest, she'll tell me stuff that I told her, and then when I'm in need, she'll tell it to me. Ugh. That one hit. Whew, and that one hit. So it's a good example of like attracts like, but it's also like she's listening, right? She doesn't know what I'm going through all the time. And so that's sometimes a challenge. Like, I don't think she's experienced everything that I've went through. I think she's had her different levels of it. I don't know that she's elevated along her path to the way that I have quite yet. But yeah, that is someone like I trust her. Right? And so some people might not have kids. So I don't understand. I don't know. Like I do think some therapies and therapists can be helpful, but I've also run against some toxic ones. So you're going to have to find people, and my advice for this would be like, find people that are like you, that treat you like you would treat them. And it's not, like I said, I don't think this is going to happen overnight. But I think it's going to happen faster when you start recognizing when you move towards people that are like this instead of people like this. And like I said, for me, that's recognizing where people are behaving like I would never behave. I would never treat you like that. That's not okay. If there are people that remind you of your old self, those are not your people. People that do things that you would want done for you, you know? I notice the signs, and I know that I've ignored them. And like, so there are signs. And if you stop and trust yourself, that's part of finding people that you can trust, is because you learn to trust yourself and you say, you know what? No, I don't want that. I don't want that. That is not okay. And sometimes we'll go back on that and we'll say, well, it wasn't that bad, or maybe this or maybe that. Like, you got to learn to stick with your first assessment of that situation when someone is behaving like that. Stop making excuses for them. You had to stop making excuses for yourself. And so like, you got to stop making excuses for other people. Like, you can't just show up and you've done a lot of the work, and you just think you're just gonna like clearance rack yourself and say, like, I just did all this work on me, but now because I just met someone who has done none of the work, but I can see a part of me in them, like, now I'm just going to hand myself over to them. Like, that doesn't make sense. You're going to unravel all the work that you've done. Part of what has also helped me is not putting so much obsession on the individual in this situation. And so when I add extra things to my life, it helps me take off the pressure of finding a partner or my soul tribe or my group. I have other things. I work out my body now. I pay attention to what I'm eating. You know, I've got 2 dogs to take care of. When you start giving your time to those things, and then I feel like you're less emotionally obsessed, if that makes sense. Because like obsessed is like you're thinking about them, you're obsessing about them, you're feeling a lot about them, but you don't even know them. You really don't even know them yet. So you're emotionally invested in the potential of somebody, and then when it doesn't happen, you're like, oh, that's so disappointing. But it's like, did you look at the signs? They weren't for you. Why did you invest before you found out who they were? We got to start looking and really reading who people are and acknowledging like this is not a reason to double down and invest in these people. And the sooner you start learning to do that, and like I said, I thought I was doing it. I think I still have to do better at it. The closer you will get to your people, because as long as you're willing to overgive to the wrong people are willing to overtake. And what that looks like is overtaking boundaries. This is like creating jobs for you, like emotional instability, but also like property line work for you where they think that they can get away with it. I don't know if it's like, like for me, it was my father who was like the, and then my mom who was like the and so I don't know if like these narcs that the loud and aggressive ones are paired with like my mom's version, even though it's the female this time and a male. It almost makes me think like it's just switched. The roles are switched. Like, so I don't think it has to be like a man that like there are tons of abusive women out there. Let me tell you. It's just not, this is not just a man doing this. This is women doing this too. Okay, so I think I'm going to end this reading there. Hopefully this is helpful. Be sure to like and subscribe. I'm trying to come up with some other readings. And so be sure to like the ones you like and you find helpful, so I'll know to focus on those ones. If not, then I'll keep changing it up until whatever happens, until whatever I find. So let me know. If you have any advice that you find has helped you, put it in the comments. We need to know. People need to know this. We need to figure this shit out. We need to elevate together. And the more of us that do this, it's like we create our own, herd mentality where it really fills up and blocks out those bitches. Okay? So yeah, with that being said, I'm going to close this reading off and I will see you in the next one. Take care.